how can I be better? How can I support you better? What do I do really, really well? So look at your superpowers and your strengths, but then also where do I sometimes have blind spots, so that you can get that feedback and take some accountability and ownership, but always having lots of kindness and compassion for yourself as you're doing this. No shame about where you might have had some blind spots. We all have them. So just give yourself that self-compassion and grace. I think it's really important.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of the peopleHum interview series. This is your host, Anushka at peopleHum. peopleHum is an end-to-end, one-view integrated human capital management automation platform, the winner of the 2019 Global Cody Award for HCM, that is specifically built for crafted employee experiences and the future of work. We run the peopleHum blog and video channel, which receives more than 400,000 visitors a year, and we also publish several interviews with well-known names globally every month. We have with us today Kristen Harcourt. For more than a decade, Kristen has partnered with executives and emerging leaders in hundreds of organizations worldwide to achieve extraordinary and sustainable results through increased self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and mindfulness. In addition to being an in-demand speaker and facilitator, she's also an accredited coach who empowers leaders to become more aware of their strengths, blind spots, values, and purpose so that they can actually build lives and organizations of success, sustainability, and health. Kristen also hosts a bi-weekly podcast called Inspirational Leadership, where she interviews progressive CEOs, strategic HR leaders, and forward-thinking experts who share her passion for leadership development and creating positive work cultures. She's a big believer in compassion, authenticity, and conscious leadership, while on a mission to help leaders transform from the inside out so they can create a meaningful career and a purpose-driven life and reach their full potential. We are so happy and honored to have someone like her today on our interview series. Welcome, Kristen. We're thrilled to be talking to you today.
Thank you so much. It's so wonderful to be here.
The pleasure is absolutely ours. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us. So, Kristen, diving right deep into the interview, how important would you say aspects such as self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and mindfulness are in the success of organizations?
So from my perspective, and I am a little bit biased, but I believe it's absolutely critical. And I think we've heard a lot of people talk about individuals can have really high IQ, but if they don't have the EQ, they're not going to be able to do the things that they need to do effectively, because ultimately, it doesn't matter how high your IQ is, when you're working within an organization, you're constantly interacting with others. And so it's humans and other humans. And I do want to say one caveat, there are some amazing scientists in the world that are off by themselves doing their work, and perhaps they wouldn't actually be able to work as effectively with others. But in general, in the workplaces that we have, we need to be able to listen to one another. We need to be able to understand what's going on with others and put ourselves in their shoes. And we need to be able to see things from their perspective in order to recognize that we don't have just our own agendas, but in order to make things happen, we need to collaborate with others and understand how things may be impacting them. So from my perspective, the journey really starts with the self-awareness. And as you have more of the self-awareness, it impacts how you show up in both the emotional intelligence and the mindfulness. So when you think about self-awareness, and it's so interesting because when I do talks and I say, how many people would say you have strong self-awareness? And about 70% of the room puts their hand up and says, oh yeah, I'm very self-aware. And it'd be interesting if they asked their colleagues whether they felt that they were as self-aware as they think that they are, because we all have blind spots. We all have wonderful strengths, but we also have blind spots that we're not always aware of. So that first step in the journey is just taking a step back and wanting to understand who you are more and how you might be impacting others. The emotional intelligence is understanding others and their emotions, understanding your own emotions and how you might be showing up in front of other people, and using that to make better decisions in order to be able to be aware of impulse control and deal with stress. And then mindfulness, especially with what's going on in the world right now in a time where there's a global pandemic. We can have so much anxiety and so much difficulties with the uncertainties and not knowing what's going to be happening. And so even in our workplaces, things are shifting and adapting so quickly. And we talk a lot about agile work environments, and the pandemic is sure showing us how to be agile very quickly, maybe not by choice. And so to me, the more mindful you can be, which is really being in the present moment so that you're not as distracted and focusing on what's happening right now in this moment by moment, is such an opportunity to be able to tap into your creativity, your productivity, your focus. So for me, these I feel are such really, really important qualities for leadership and for everybody in organizations.
Absolutely. I can't agree more with you, Kristen. And I think these are really powerful concepts that have emerged now more than ever. And they're really important, especially with the pandemic, just being agile and resilient and using mindfulness techniques because employees and workplaces are being exposed to more mental health issues these days. And I completely agree when you said we need to really foster the interpersonal touch and the human connect in organizations. So great. Love the answer.
Yes.
So going on to the next question, as a coach, I'm sure you must be endowed with, certain duties towards making leaders develop certain skills and skills that are in a way, help them become the best at what they do. So can you speak a little about that to our audience?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, for me, being able to work with leaders in a coaching capacity is such a privilege because I get to witness that transformation and witness those ways that they perhaps were getting in their own way and holding themselves back. And so a lot of the work that I do when I'm working with leaders is first off, really helping them to understand more about who they are and what they truly want and where they might be holding themselves in terms of limitations. So if they think about them really showing up within their full potential. And so a lot of times that's about having these stretch goals that are getting them outside of their comfort zone. But what they notice is as they do that, they start to really come alive because they feel so much more energized and excited when they are, because we all want to grow, we all want to evolve. But the difference with coaching is when you're doing it by yourself and you're in the discomfort, it's really hard. It's really uncomfortable because you have nobody to share what you're experiencing. And so the beauty with coaching is they experience it, but they have someone who is a safe environment with someone who really cares about them. Their only agenda is championing them. So for me, they can talk about and say, hey, I tried that thing that we were talking about and I experimented with it. It went really well. And so we can celebrate together. Or they might say, it really didn't go so well at all. I tried it and I recognized it's way more difficult than I thought it was. And so it's about those baby steps, and they're constantly challenging themselves and doing things differently. And what starts to happen, which is fascinating, is as they do this more and more and more, they recognize there's these resources that they have within themselves that they hadn't been fully tapping into. And so they start to use those more and more and more. And I think they just also recognize those times that as leaders, leaders can be really hard on themselves. They have high expectations. They feel like they need to be there for everybody. They want to make everybody happy. And they start to recognize, oh, I can't actually make everybody happy. And that's not the job. There's going to be times where people aren't going to like it as much, but they're still showing up with integrity and transparency and compassion. And the way they have compassion and empathy for others, they start to learn how to apply that a little bit more for themselves as well. And it's so interesting to see the possibilities as they start to really reconnect more with who they are truly at their core. They lead by example and help others to start to also tap into that potential and who they are at their core. So from my perspective, it's this ripple effect. And that's why I love working with leaders, because you start to see how that's impacting so many people, not just within workplaces, but also within communities and within families as well.
Wow, that was so well put by you, Kristen. I mean, you explained that, really well. I mean, love the way you just explain that answer. And I love how you called it the ripple effect. It makes so much sense now. And I completely agree with you on how, we need a mentor to kind of give us a sense of direction when we lose it, and to, like push us beyond our comfort zone to become a better version of ourselves.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. Exactly. I always like to use the analogy if you think about Olympians or if you think about those athletes like the Michael Jordans of the world, they would have like several coaches, the three throw coach, the person's helping with this thing, all these different things, because they can sometimes have tunnel vision. And then somebody else, as they're helping to expand it, you start to recognize all these other ways where you could go that you might have not gone by yourself.
Absolutely, absolutely. Can't agree more with you. And that was such a crisp response you provided us with, and at the same time, an exhaustive one. So, thank you so much for that.
You're
um,
welcome.
Going on to the next question, what I find really interesting is that you've graduated in both sociology and psychology. And being a sociology graduate myself, that definitely, I'm really intrigued to know that, graduating in both these subjects, that definitely would have provided you with an edge in understanding human nature as an executive coach. So, could you just share your experience a little?
It's so funny when you look backwards, it all makes sense. But when you're in it, you don't recognize it, right? So I would have been one of those people, I don't know exactly what I want to do with my life. So sociology and psychology feels great. And I've always been fascinated by human behavior and why we do what we do, and how our brain is incredible, but how it can work for us and work against us, right? So all of the mindset piece, I'm fascinated with growth mindset and fixed mindset with Carol Dweck's work. So you're right. It was quite fascinating. And so as I started to learn more and more about people and why they do what they do and what it looks like to really thrive, because with so much of the positive psychology right now, it used to be in the past, there was so much focus on illness and what wasn't going on. But now it's really shifted to more, okay, well, from a psychology perspective, what does positive psychology look like in neuroscience and neuroplasticity? And so all those ways where previously we thought, okay, well, it's just we have our brain, it is how it is. It's formed by the time we're in our mid 20s and then we're done. And then everything's like, no way, no way. We can shift, we can create new neural pathways. We can, when we start to do different things that are stretching and learning, and how we can start to see what's going on in the brain when that happens. So I love that we can integrate both the science, because I think I'm a little bit more right brain. So for me, like the creative, and of course I understand this and I would explain it, but some of my more linear thinkers would say, well, I like what you're saying, but give me the science to support that backs up what you're saying. And so now they can see the science as well. So I feel like people who previously were a little bit skeptical when we talk about different routines or things that they can do, I just think it's such an impact, our rituals. So even things with the way they start their morning and the rituals that they have, how that can impact their whole day, and that they can start to create those new neural pathways. I'm finding more and more people get it and are believing it, are more bought in, and are willing to do the different things to change, which has been fascinating. The other piece that's interesting, and my fascination with psychology and sociology, it also helped me to recognize as I look back, when I was in high school in my early 20s, there wasn't as much talk around what it looked like to be a professional coach. So I didn't recognize, my whole life I've been coaching people. Like I've always been that person, not about giving advice, but asking powerful questions so that they could come to their own answers, because ultimately we only have our own answers for ourselves, right? Because we're all so unique. And so I think that it's interesting how those all came together. And I recognized, same thing with the public speaking. Back in grade 5, I was winning speech contests, but I wasn't sure exactly what that was going to look like in terms of becoming a professional speaker. And I also wanted to be a teacher when I was younger. And then I did a co-op for teaching. And then I said, ooh, I don't think I want to be with little kids all day long. But now I recognize, oh, I am teaching. I'm teaching adults, right? So teaching in different ways. So it's so interesting when we look backwards all those little steps in our journey that were guiding us to where we needed to go. It's just you don't know it at the time. So there's a level of trust and recognizing that we zig and we zag, and our journey does not necessarily as linear as we think it is.
Absolutely. And I think now more than ever, mental health has gotten the spotlight in workplaces with the pandemic, and more relaxation techniques. And as you're focusing on mindfulness, those are also really catching up.
Yes, yes, they're understanding, like just taking 2 or 3 breaths every hour to get regrounded and recentered, how it can take away that anxiety, or going outside in nature for just 15 to 20 minutes in your workday can recenter you as well, right? So there's just more and more research that are helping people understand that they got it intuitively, like, oh, there's something about nature, but now they're understanding more about what's going on in your brain and your body. So the science behind why nature is impacting you, as an example.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's great how you said you're now coaching leaders and adults. So I think learning is a lifelong process, and we're always going to be on this journey. There's always scope for upskilling and reskilling ourselves.
Yes, yes. Till we die. It's never done. We don't get to a place and then we're done. There's always another level, because I'm curious what you think, but for me, the more I learn, the more I recognize I don't know.
Absolutely, likewise. True, very true. So thank you so much for that answer. And I also love the part where you said everyone is unique and we need to listen to each one's stories, because every experience is unique, and we have a lot to learn from people of all ages, diversity. Yeah.
100%, because that's why I'm very passionate around humanizing the work. And a part of humanizing the work is creating very diverse and inclusive workplaces, and understanding every age, every, because you see some of the, when there's different ways that groups are marginalized, sometimes it's around the ageism too, right? It's like, oh, you get to a certain age, well, you have less. Oh, no, they have so much wisdom. Yes, things are adapting and things are changing, but all that they've learned on their journey, and as well diverse voices from different cultures, to me, that's how innovation and creativity happens, is by us listening and learning from one another and having that openness. I'm so happy to see all of the work that's happening right now in this area, but it doesn't feel like it's a checkbox exercise, right? So previously, where it was like we should do it, now it's that we want to do it, not we should do it. Like this is imperative around creating human workplaces and human communities. This is an imperative right now.
Absolutely, absolutely. Love how you encapsulated so many valuable points in that one answer, Kristen. Thank you so much for that. That was really enlightening. So, going on to the next question, you've already spoken about the concept of conscious leadership. Can you just elaborate a little more on that for our audience?
Yes, absolutely. And so for me, when I start to think about conscious leadership, it's a little bit around the self leadership, and recognizing and asking yourself every day, how do I want to show up today? Who do I want to be? And that's a hard question to ask ourselves sometimes, because you get into the day to day, and sometimes you want to do things the fast way and the easy way. And so that could mean in our current workplaces that we got a lot on our plates, right? 24/7, also sometimes with technology. So people can feel like they're always on. And it's taking a step back constantly and asking ourselves, are we showing up as the best version of ourselves? And are we creating an environment that is the best version for the people around us as well? And so for me, conscious leadership encapsulates a lots of things. It's around consciousness from what's going on in the world and environmentally, and speaking up and using our voice to advocate for others. It's about recognizing that every person is valuable, and what does it look to make everyone feel seen and heard. It's also about recognizing, like, what do we need in order for us to show up as our best selves, right? So as leaders, if you go home from work and you're working 90-hour work weeks and you're not doing anything to take care of yourself, you're not having fun and play, you're not doing things that bring you joy, you can't be the best version of yourself when you go to work. It's not possible, right? Because you're not tapping into who you are as a human when you're not tapping into those different things. So to me, conscious leadership is being aware of what you're doing outside of work. It's being aware of who you're being inside of work. It's being aware of how you're impacting the people around you. It's asking yourself, what does it look like for me to show up in a way that's honoring my purpose and my values and my own personal mission, the mission of the organization. So it really encapsulates constantly asking ourselves, not only what are we doing, but who are we being, and how can we continuously strive to be the best version of ourselves for everyone around us, because it's not just work, right? How are we showing up with our families? How are we showing up in our communities? To me, that's how we raise consciousness globally, because when we do that, we and our energy, we impact everyone around us, and then we inspire them to also be the best version of themselves.
Wow, lovely, lovely. Love the response and thoroughly agree with you again. And I loved how you actually said it's about building a kind of sustainable leadership in a conscious way and having our values and goals and our purpose in place and having that work life alignment as well so that we are developing ourselves both on the personal and the professional front. Great, Kristen. Thank you so much. I think that was really noteworthy.
You're welcome.
So, just to kind of wrap this interview up, I have gained so many fresh perspectives from you, but unfortunately, we need to kind of wrap this interview up. So, do you have any passing remarks you'd like to leave our audience with?
What I'd like to leave with your audience is give yourself a break. Give yourself some self-compassion and grace. I just think everyone is very quick to have compassion and empathy and kindness for others, but they don't necessarily have that kindness for themselves. And so with everything that I was talking about today, it could be easy where people think, oh my gosh, I'm only here. How am I ever going to get there? It's just one step at a time. So it's about progress, not perfection, because I think that's where people get stuck. They just want to be able to, we live in this Amazon Prime, instant gratification. We get everything in a day, 24 hours. That's not how change works. Not for meaningful inward long-term change. It's a journey. It's a process. So I would just say for everybody listening, what's that next step you can take, just one next step to get closer to you being the best version of yourself. And maybe that's about asking the people that you really love around you, how can I be better? How can I support you better? What do I do really, really well? So look at your superpowers and your strengths, but then also where do I sometimes have blind spots, so that you can get that feedback and take some accountability and ownership, but always having lots of kindness and compassion for yourself as you're doing this. No shame about where you might have had some blind spots. We all have them. So just give yourself that self-compassion and grace. I think it's really important.
Wow, love the last bit of positivity from your end. And absolutely agree with you. It's all about self compassion and having gratitude in life. Great. And loved how you just put the whole thing, Kristen. It really means a lot. And so you're saying you need to really take one step at a time and focus on achieving smaller things first, in the micro level, which will eventually lead you to, like make macro level changes. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Yes, that
Exactly.
really makes
Exactly.
sense.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Thank you so much, Kristen. It was such an honor and privilege interviewing you today. I gained so many lovely perspectives and I had a wonderful time interviewing you. Thank you just for taking out the time to talk to Lead Us Hum today. And I'm really hoping to do like a second lap of this sometime in the near future.
That would be awesome. It was absolutely my pleasure. Thank you so much.